In the quiet ring of Station Ardent, the days moved slowly, almost too slowly for the people who lived there. The station circled a calm blue star, and its outer residential sector felt more like a peaceful small town than part of a vast human colony. People went to work, came home, shared small gossip in hallways, and lived their simple routines. Most of the neighbors knew each other well enough to exchange smiles or a friendly wave, and life continued without much surprise. Among the residents were 3 young technicians. Jace, Lyra, and Oswin had all grown up on the station, and they handled maintenance duties in different parts of the inner ring. Jace was talkative and always carried tools in every pocket. Lyra was sharp and quiet but stubborn when she believed she was right, and Oswin was a calm, patient person who often acted like the older brother of the group, even though he was not the oldest. They worked well together, lived close to each other, and spent most evenings sharing food or fixing something no one had asked them to fix. Next to them lived a girl they barely knew. Her name was Mira Thallon. She always said hello softly when she passed them, but she never stayed long enough to talk. She kept her eyes down most of the time, and her voice was gentle, almost too soft for the noisy station corridors. When they first met her, they thought she might be shy, or simply not interested in making friends. She carried herself in a quiet way, as if she wanted to be unnoticed. Mira lived in Unit 7K. Just across the hall from Jason Lyra, her door was always shut, and she never joined the social gatherings that sometimes filled the hallway in the evenings. Still, she was never rude. When Lyra once offered her a small container of homemade noodles, Mira accepted with a polite smile, thanked her, and disappeared back inside. None of them heard a sound from her apartment for the rest of the night. But sometimes, very late, faint noises came from inside Mira's home. Metallic clicks, soft thuds, a low hum that sounded like tools or machines being activated. The first time Jace heard it, he assumed she was building something simple or fixing some broken appliance. The second time, he wondered if she worked a night shift and used strange equipment. The third time, he knocked on the wall and joked through it, asking if she had a secret robot hidden behind the door. She did not respond. The sounds were never loud, never urgent, and never lasted long. Just brief reminders that Mira might not be as ordinary as she seemed. Life on Station Ardent continued normally. Jace, Lyra, and Oswin worked shifts, repairing wiring, calibrating sensors, and restoring broken panels. Sometimes, when returning home, they saw Mira walking down the hall. She always moved with careful steps, almost too smooth, as if she had trained for balance. But she carried groceries like everyone else, waited for the elevator like everyone else, blended in so perfectly that no one gave her a second thought. But Jace, Lyra, and Oswin noticed small things. They noticed how Mira always avoided crowded routes and preferred the quiet maintenance corridors. They noticed she wore simple clothes every day, but kept her boots cleaner than anyone who walked that many halls should. They noticed she locked her door with an extra manual latch, something unnecessary on a station that already had secure digital locks. One evening, as the artificial sky dimmed to night mode, the trio sat together in Jace's apartment eating reheated dinner. They talked about their day, laughed about a broken coolant pipe Lyra had wrestled with, and shared stories of the odd passengers they had seen at the inner docks. They did not expect anything unusual to happen, but then a faint alarm sounded through the residential ring. It was not the loud blaring of an emergency evacuation. It was small and brief, almost like a warning test or a glitch in the system. But the sound was odd enough that all 3 of them paused. "What was that?" Jace asked, lifting his head. Oswin shrugged. "Probably nothing. The inner ring has been running diagnostics all week." But Lyra frowned. "I haven't heard that one before." Before they could discuss it further, they heard soft footsteps in the hallway. The 3 of them stepped toward the door and opened it slightly. Myra was walking swiftly past their apartments. She was not carrying groceries. She was not wearing her usual calm expression. Her jaw was tight and her eyes were sharp and alert, almost dangerous. She did not look like the girl who avoided conversation. She looked like someone preparing for something serious. She reached the corner of the hallway, glanced behind her quickly, and then melted into the shadows of the connecting corridor. She moved with a smoothness, none of them had ever seen from her before. Jace blinked. "Did you see that?" She looked. "Different," Lyra murmured, staring at the hallway. Oswin leaned forward, confused. Maybe she got bad news? But the way she moved did not look like someone upset. It looked like someone trained, someone ready, someone who knew exactly where she needed to go. They waited for her to return. She did not. The next morning began strangely. When Jace opened his door to head to work, he froze. A group of military operatives stood in the hallway. Real soldiers' heavy armor, scanning devices, side weapons secured at their hips. Station Ardent occasionally saw military personnel, but not like this. Not this many. Not in the residential wing. One of the soldiers, a tall woman with sharp features, approached Jace. "Excuse me," she said. "Have you seen the woman in Unit 7K? Jace's mouth fell open. "Mimira. Did something happen?" The soldier did not answer. She simply asked again, "Did you see her yesterday evening?" Lyra and Oswin stepped out behind Jace. "What's going on?" Lyra asked. The soldier did not respond directly. She simply waited. Oswin cleared his throat. "We heard an alarm last night, and then Mira left." She looked different, focused, serious. The soldiers exchanged glances. "Did she speak to you?" The woman asked. "No," Jace said. "She didn't even look at us." The woman nodded once, then said to her team, "Sweep the unit and the surrounding corridors. If she left the station, find the exit point." The soldiers moved quickly, forming a tight formation and unlocking Mira's unit with a military override. As soon as the door slid open, they entered. Jace, Lyra, and Oswin exchanged shocked looks. Myra's apartment had been sealed. That never happened unless the authorities believed something serious or dangerous was inside. Lyra whispered. "Why would soldiers be looking for her?" Oswin replied softly. "Maybe she's in trouble." But the tension in the soldiers' movements hinted at something else. Not fear of Mira being harmed, but fear of something Mira might have done. Hours passed. The trio went to their work shifts, but their minds stayed locked on the scene they'd witnessed. They whispered to each other in maintenance tunnels, wondering what Myra had been hiding. Their neighbor had always seemed quiet, gentle, even fragile. It was strange to imagine her connected to anything serious enough to involve military forces. By evening, the unit was sealed off with a temporary barrier. A sign read, "Authorized personnel only, no." One was allowed near. The trio gathered in Lyra's apartment and tried to piece together everything they had noticed over the past months. The strange late-night noises, the quiet way Mira carried herself, the extra lock, the way she had moved like a trained soldier the night before. It all felt connected, and yet none of them understood it. Jace spoke first. "She didn't seem dangerous." Lyra shook her head. "Maybe not. But she was hiding something." Oswin looked toward the sealed door across the hallway. Whatever she was hiding, it was important. For the first time, they wondered if Mira had ever truly been the shy girl they thought they knew. Later that night, the three of them stood quietly in the hallway, staring at the sealed entrance of Unit 7K. The station lights dimmed again, casting soft shadows across the floor. "She was just our neighbor," she said softly. "Maybe she was more than that," Lyra replied. Oswin nodded slowly. "I have a feeling we're going to find out." And as they stood there, none of them realized the truth yet. The girl they barely noticed, the girl who watered her balcony plants and avoided small talk, was not simply hiding from her neighbors. She was hiding from a past that had shaped the fate of human space. A past powerful enough to bring soldiers to her door. A past that was about to pull all three of them into something far larger than they ever imagined. The day after the soldiers searched Mira's apartment, Station Ardent felt different. The usual quiet comfort was replaced by a strange tension, like the air itself was waiting for something to happen. Even people who had never met Mira whispered about the sealed door and unit. 7K. Rumors spread fast on a station with limited space, and secrets rarely stayed hidden for long. But despite the whispers, no one knew the truth. No one, except perhaps the three young technicians, who had lived next to Mira for months. Jace, Lyra, and Oswin had spent most of the night talking softly in Lyra's apartment. They tried to understand what had happened and why soldiers were looking for someone as quiet as Mira, but no matter how many ideas they discussed, nothing made sense. The next morning, Jace woke early. He went into the hallway and stared again at the sealed door of Unit 7K. The military barrier was still in place, glowing faint blue. It made Mira's doorway look like the entrance to a restricted lab. Jace rubbed the back of his neck, feeling confused and a little worried. He wished Mira would just appear. Walking calmly down the hall the way she usually did, he wished she would smile softly and nod. Kashia she always did when she passed by, but the hallway stayed empty. When Lyra and Oswin joined him, none of them felt ready to leave for work. They walked together, quiet and thoughtful. Even the hum of the station felt heavier during their shift. They worked inside the mid-level maintenance tunnels where warm pipes and old wiring lined the narrow halls. Normally, Jace joked about the terrible smell of coolant or the strange humming sounds. Lyra usually rolled her eyes and corrected his guesses about broken systems. Oswin often focused on the job, reminding them to finish before their supervisor checked the schedules. But today, no one joked. Every few minutes, Jace found himself thinking about Mira slipping into the shadows. Lyra wondered why Mira never asked for help if she was in trouble. Oswin kept replaying the way the soldiers had acted. They hadn't been searching for a lost person. They had been searching for someone dangerous. By midday, all three of them felt the same frustration. They knew so little about the girl who lived next to them. She had been polite but distant, friendly but closed off. She always walked with soft steps, always stayed quiet, and always made sure she was unnoticed, but the way she moved the night before, fast. Determined, almost trained, did not match the quiet neighbor they knew. After work, the trio walked home together. The corridor outside Mira's unit was still guarded by two soldiers. They stood straight, helmets sealed, hands near their weapons. Their presence made the hallway feel like part of a war zone, not a peaceful residential ring. One of the soldiers spoke. "Residents, please move along. This area is under investigation." Swin nodded respectfully. "We live right there," he said, pointing at their doors. The soldier allowed them to pass, but watched them with sharp eyes. Inside Jace's apartment, the three sat around the table again. They were tired, but none of them wanted to rest. Something bigger than them was happening, and it was connected to Mira. "We need to understand," Lyra said finally. "She lived next to us all this time. We heard things. We saw things. Maybe we missed something important. What if she's part of some secret mission?" Oswin shook his head. "If she were military, we would have seen signs. Uniform calls, equipment, unless she was hiding them," Lyra said quietly. They fell silent at that. Mira had been hiding something. That much seemed certain now. Jace stood up suddenly. "I'm going to look something up." He went to his small console, tapped the screen, and opened the public registry. If Mira Thallon lived here, her name should show up in the resident records for the past year. He typed her name. Nothing appeared. Lyra frowned. "Try again." Jace typed slower, carefully this time. Still nothing. Oswin stepped forward. "Let me try a different database." He accessed the internal maintenance system, which included lists of repairs done in every apartment. "We repaired the lights in her unit 3 months ago. It should be in the logs." He searched. No record existed. Jace blinked. "That can't be right. We were in her apartment. We talked to her," Lyra whispered. "Why would her information be removed?" Oswin looked troubled. "It wasn't removed recently. It looks like it was never entered at all." They stared at each other. Myra had lived there for months, yet the station records treated her as if she had never been born. Jace swallowed. "Who can live without any record on a human station?" Lyra answered softly. "Someone who doesn't want to be found." The three of them kept searching. They checked old shipment logs, ID scans at the gates, and even the guest registry for temporary visitors. None of them showed Mira's name, but they didn't stop. Jace opened a separate page I used to search rumors. gossip, and unsolved mysteries within human space. It wasn't official, but it sometimes gave clues the central systems hid. He typed mysterious operative, missing soldier, hidden identity, or anything strange linked to the outer colonies. At first, nothing useful appeared. But then Oswine found something. A single name. Valkyrie Red. The moment he saw it, he felt something in his chest tighten. The name was whispered in almost every dark corner of military talk. Valkyrie Red was a legend. It's almost a ghost story told among soldiers who served during the Zetharian conflict. Lyra leaned closer. Search if anyone knows what she looks like. Oswin hesitated. There are no photos. Everything about Valkyrie Red is classified. Jace frowned. Then how do people know she exists? Oswin explained softly. Because some soldiers said she saved them. They described a womanfast.com deadly accurate who appeared in the worst moments of battle and turned the tide. She fought in places where humans almost lost everything. A myth. We're chasing a myth. Oswin looked at the sealed door. Maybe myths come from somewhere real. That night, they tried not to stare at Mira's empty doorway, but it was impossible to ignore. Every time they left or entered their apartments, the sealed barrier glowed faintly, reminding them that their neighbor had been more than what she seemed. The soldiers changed shifts frequently. Each new pair scanned the hallway, checking for anyone trying to get close to the restricted unit. Sometimes they talked softly to each other, saying things the trio could not hear. But their stiff movements, tense shoulders, and alert eyes suggested fear or respect or both. The next day, a friend of Oswin's, who worked in station security, met him during lunch. His name was Rion, and he usually liked to joke around. But today he looked tense. I heard you live next to the sealed unit, Rion said. Oswin nodded carefully. We do, Rion lowered his voice. Whatever you do, stay away from that case. Oswin felt a shiver. What's inside it? Rion didn't answer immediately. He looked around to be sure no one listened. Then he whispered, a field case with restricted locks. Military prototype. And there were traces of old combat armor inside the room. Not normal armor classified kind. Oswin's eyes widened. Are you saying Mira was military? Rion shook his head. Not just military. Someone high level. Maybe even Black Ops. Oswin felt a rush of shock. He remembered how smoothly Mira had moved, like someone who had trained for years. He remembered her eyes cold and focused when she walked down the hall the night before the soldiers appeared. When he returned to Jace and Lyra, he shared everything. Jace slammed his hands on the table. That means she was hiding on purpose, Lyra whispered, or protecting someone. They all looked at each other at the same time. What if she was protecting us? Jace said quietly. The idea made the room feel smaller. If Myra had been a soldier, no, not just a soldier, but something more than. Why had she chosen to live next to three simple technicians? Why act shy and harmless? Why pretend to be ordinary? Their confusion only grew when the station broadcast network suddenly flashed red for a moment, then turned back to normal. The announcement said it was a minor glitch. The timing felt suspicious. Later that evening, as the trio stood in the hallway again, they noticed something strange. The military tape around Mira's unit had been reinforced. The soldiers looked more alert than ever. One soldier had a scanning device pointed directly at the ceiling, as if checking for some hidden signal. Lyra whispered. Something happened. Before they could discuss it, the tall female soldier, the same one from the first day, approached them again. You three, she said. I want to ask more questions. They exchanged nervous looks but followed her. The soldier led them to a quiet corner near the emergency stairwell. We need to know everything you observed. About Mira Thalin, she said. Every detail. Every strange thing. Jay swallowed. Is she dangerous? The soldier looked at him carefully. Her expression did not show fear. It showed respect. She is one of the most skilled operatives humanity ever produced, the soldier said softly. If she is on the station, it is for a reason. Lyra felt her heart pound. Then why was she hiding? The soldier answered slowly. because the war you think ended years ago didn't truly end. Silence filled the small corner. The trio stared, trying to understand. Their neighbor, quiet, gentle Myrid, had been someone trained for war, someone who vanished from records, someone who carried a classified case, someone the military respected. The soldiers straightened. If she returns, notify us immediately. But the trio didn't answer, because deep inside, they weren't sure whether Myra was someone to report, or someone they needed to protect. That night, Station Ardent felt larger and emptier than usual. The trio sat together, staring out the small window at the distant blue star. They thought about Mira's quiet smile, her sudden disappearance. The name they had found, Valkyrie Red. They didn't know yet that the truth was even greater than the rumors. They didn't know that Mira had once walked on the edge of death to save thousands. All they knew was this: their neighbor had not been hiding because she was dangerous. She had been hiding because something far more dangerous was coming. The next morning on station, Arden felt heavier than any morning before. Even though the artificial lights brightened slowly to mimic sunrise, the air stayed tense, almost uncomfortable. People walked faster in the hallways, whispering in low voices about soldiers, sealed doors, and mysterious alerts. Something unseen was stirring beneath the calm routines of station life. Jace, Lyra, and Oswin met outside their apartments, each of them tired from a night of thinking too much and sleeping too little. The soldiers guarding Mira's unit had changed shifts again, but their alert posture was the same. They scanned everyone who passed, even children, which had never happened before on the station. Jace rubbed his eyes. If this continues, the whole station will panic. Lyra nodded. People can sense when something is wrong, even if no one tells them. Oswin glanced at Unit 7K. I keep wondering where she is now. They all looked at the sealed door. It stood silent and cold, glowing with the same faint blue light. For the first time, it felt like Mira herself was still watching them through it. Their shift started in the outer maintenance ring, where the machinery was older and louder. Usually, the noise helped Jace stay focused. Today, it only made him more anxious. Every time a pipe hissed or a vent clanged, he jumped slightly. Lyra tried to distract herself by inspecting old wiring, but her hands shook whenever she thought about Mira's calm expression on the night she disappeared. Oswin, who always stayed calm, found himself staring into the shadows of the maintenance tunnel, expecting Mira to appear at any moment. At midday, the station alert system glitched again. A red flash ran across their maintenance screens for a single second, then vanished. The same thing had happened the night Myra disappeared. Jace frowned. That's too much to be a coincidence, Oswin agreed. Something is happening inside the station systems. These aren't normal errors. Lyra bit her lip. Do you think it's connected to her? They all knew the answer. During their short break, they found a private corner near an unused loading gate. Lyra sat on a crate, arms crossed tightly. We need to stop guessing, she said. We need real information. Jace nodded slowly. But how? The military won't tell us anything. Swin hesitated. What if we don't ask them? What if we ask Myra herself? Jace stared at him. Oswin. She's gone. Not gone, Oswin said firmly. She left because something happened. If she's really Valkyrie Red, if that rumor is truth, then she didn't run away. She went to stop something. The name hung in the air again. Heavy and mysterious. Valkyrie Red. A soldier who wasn't supposed to exist. Myths spoken in broken jokes and quiet respect, and possibly the girl who lived next door. Later that afternoon, the trio returned to their maintenance shift. They tried to focus on calibrating pressure valves and tightening loose bolts, but their minds drifted constantly. When their shift ended, they walked back to the residential sector. The hall outside Mira's unit was strangely empty. No soldiers, no equipment, no glowing barrier. The door to Unit 7K was slightly open. Jace froze. Did they leave? Lyra stepped forward carefully. Something's wrong. They would never leave without locking everything. Oswine swallowed. We should look. They pushed the door gently and entered Myra's apartment. It was dim and cool inside. The air smelled faintly metallic, like machines that had run recently. The room was still neat, almost minimalist, but now, for the first time, they could see things the military search team had missed or ignored. A faint scrape on the floor near the wall, a tiny burn mark on the ceiling, a thin cable lying near a vent. Nothing dramatic. But everything suggested careful, hidden activity. Lyra walked toward the window. She didn't live like someone normal. Jace lifted the cable. This is military grade. Not something the station provides. Aswin opened a drawer. Inside was a small piece of metal flat, silver, with a number engraved on it. He read it softly. Sector 9, Command Directive. Lyra turned. That's high level. Very high. Before they could discuss it, a sudden noise echoed from the hallway. Footsteps heavy, hurried, and coming closer. Oswin whispered sharply.
Oh, wait.
Someone's coming. They turned off the lights and hid behind the furniture. Jace crouched near a low cabinet, Lyra behind a column, Oswin beside the doorway. The footsteps stopped at Unit 7K. Someone entered. A shadow crossed the room. For a moment, all three held their breath. Then a soft beep sounded like a small device activating. A moment later, a quiet voice spoke. Come out. It's safe. Lyra's heart leaped. She recognized the voice. Myra, JACE, stood slowly. Mira? Mira stepped into the faint light of the open doorway. But she didn't look like the shy neighbor anymore. Her hair was tied back tightly. Her eyes were sharp, scanning the shadows even as she spoke calmly. She wore dark, flexible gear with hidden metal plating light armor, designed for movement. A faint cut marked her cheek. She didn't seem bothered by it. She looked like someone who had seen danger only hours ago. Someone who knew it would come again. Oswin whispered, You're alive. Mira nodded softly. I didn't want you three involved, but you continued searching. So now you deserve the truth. They gathered around her, nervous but relieved. Jace asked, Why did the soldiers come? Why were they looking for you? Mira hesitated for a quiet moment. When she finally spoke, her voice was steady. I gave up my military identity years ago. But I was not forgotten. Lyra stepped closer. What were you hiding? Mira looked down for a second, as if gathering her thoughts. There are things the public believes ended wars, threats, enemies, she said softly. But some enemies wait in shadows. The Zetherian were not completely destroyed. A surviving faction is trying to gather power again. Jace felt a chill. I thought they were gone forever. I wanted you to think that. Myra said quietly. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars beyond the station. I came here because this station is the target of a silent threat. The Zetherian planted infiltrators in several human colonies. Ardent is one of them. Lyra's eyes widened. Infiltrators. They're here? Mira nodded. They are disguised. They planted false signals inside the station systems. The alarms you heard, the flashes on the screens, they weren't glitches. They were warnings. Or tests. Oswin swallowed. Why this station? Mira took a breath. Because Arden controls access to 3 nearby colonies. If it falls, the others will follow. Silence filled the room. Jace finally said, Then why were you hiding? Why not tell the officials? Mira turned to face them fully. Her eyes held tiredness, strength, and something deeper. Because my name creates panic, she whispered. Because when the military learns Valkyrie Red is near, they assume the worst. They assume war has already begun. Jace and Lyra exchanged stunned looks. So it's true, Lyra said softly. You really are Valkyrie Red? Mira didn't confirm it with pride. Instead, she nodded with a quiet sadness. I once was, she said. But I no longer want that life. Oswin stepped forward. Then why did you come back? Mira looked directly at them. Because if I didn't, thousands on this station would die. The 3 of them felt the weight of her words settle in their chests. Mira continued. The soldiers who came weren't trying to arrest me. They were trying to bring me back. They believe they need Valkyrie Red again. But I refused. Not because I am afraid of fighting, but because I don't want innocent people dragged into another war. Jace frowned. Then why are you here now? Mira opened a small device she held, a glowing blue shard. Its light pulsed slowly. This is a tracker, she said. I used it to follow a hidden Zetherian signal inside the station. Lyra leaned closer. Did you find something? Mira nodded. I found proof that the infiltrators have already reached the upper sectors. They are preparing to shut down the defense grid from the inside. Oswin felt his heart drop. If they do that, the station becomes defenseless, Mira finished. And the attack begins. Jace took a deep breath. What do we do? They all looked at Myra for the first time. She didn't look alone. She looked like someone ready to ask for help. I can't do this alone, Myra said quietly. I need your skills. Your access to the maintenance systems. Your knowledge of the tunnels, Lyra nodded immediately. We'll help you. Oswin stepped forward. Tell us what to do. Jace smiled nervously. Guess we're part of something big now. Mira's expression softened. Just a little. You already were, she said. Outside the window, the blue star continued shining, unaware of the danger gathering around the station. But inside Unit 7K, a new team had formed: a quiet soldier, once a myth, and 3 ordinary technicians who had just learned that the war they thought ended years ago had returned. And this time, they were part of it. Mira moved through the dim hallway with slow, careful steps. The lights flickered overhead like the station itself was nervous. She knew every vibration humming under her boots. She knew what each one meant, and which ones should not be there. The trio followed behind her, trying to stay quiet, even though their hearts beat loudly in their chests. Jace felt like the noise alone could give them away. Lyra kept checking over her shoulder while Oswin clutched a small tool case like it was a shield. None of them spoke. They all knew silence was safer. Mira paused at a junction and raised her hand. Her fingers moved in small, sharp signals. She did not even think about it. Her body remembered this language from years of missions, ambushes, and dark corridors that smelled just like this one. The trio understood only half of what she was trying to tell them, but they followed anyway. Trust had become natural now. When she leaned forward to check the next passage, Jace noticed something he had not before. Her breathing was deeper than usual, like she was fighting the pain inside her chest. The wound she had patched earlier was still troubling her, but she acted like she was made of steel, as if stopping was not an option. He wondered again how someone like her had lived quietly next door for so long. How she watered plants, smiled politely, and kept to herself while carrying secrets heavier than their whole world. Mira lifted her head slightly. "Two ahead," she whispered. Her voice was low, calm, but her eyes grew sharper. Not human. One rushed toward the trio. Jace grabbed a metal bar from the floor. He didn't know where the courage came from, but he stepped forward. Blocking the alien from reaching the others, the alien swung at him, knocking the bar from his hand. Jace stumbled, but before the creature could strike again, Myra appeared in a sudden blur. She rammed into the alien and threw it across the platform. "Stay behind me," she shouted. The trio moved back quickly. 2 more aliens lunged at Mira at once. She dodged the first with a sideways shift, letting its claws scrape against the railing. She hit the second in the chest, then spun and kicked the first. Sparks flew from their tools as they dropped them. Another alien jumped from above, landing hard. Mira rolled away just in time. It slashed at her arm, leaving a deep cut in her armor. Jace saw the wound and panicked. "Mira, focus on the panel," she shouted when kept working on sealing the system. His hands moved fast now, fear giving him speed. Almost done. Lyra held the flashlight tightly, shining it on Oswin's hand so he could see. Mira blocked another attack and punched. It's hard enough to knock the alien back into the wall. It sparked on impact and crumpled. But the last Etherian was smarter. It jumped toward the core hatch, holding a small detonator-like device. Mira's eyes widened. "No," she ran. The alien activated the device. The walls shook. Energy pulsed dangerously. A loud warning tone filled the room. "Oswin." Mira yelled. Ah! One more second. Oswin shouted back. Mira tackled the alien, slamming it onto the floor. It hissed in pain and tried to reach the device again. Mira grabbed it and crushed it in her hand. Energy sparked around her fingers. Oswin slammed the final switch. The core pressure stabilized with a deep rumble. The warning tone faded. The alien beneath Mira tried to rise. She did not hesitate. She ended it quickly. Silence filled the chamber. The trio stood frozen. Breaths fast, hearts pounding. Mira finally stood. She looked around slowly, making sure no more threats were nearby. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. It's over, she whispered. The trio walked toward her carefully. Jace stared at her like she was something unreal. You saved the station, again. Myra looked at him, her expression softer than before. We saved it. I couldn't have locked the channel alone. And if you hadn't slowed that one down, it would have reached the core first. Lyra's eyes filled with relieved tears. You still took on 4 by yourself. Mira gave a small smile. The first real smile they had seen from her? Old habit. Oswin wiped sweat from his forehead. What happens now? Mira turned toward the upper levels, listening to the distant echoes of returning security teams. Now the station will send soldiers to sweep the lower decks. The remaining Zetharian will retreat. Without the core, their mission is over. Jace walked closer. And you, what happens to you? Mira hesitated. She removed her helmet. For the first time, they saw her fully tired eyes, quiet strength, and a kind of sadness they could not describe. People will know who I am again, she said softly. They will remember Valkyrie Red. They will want answers. Lyra touched her arm gently. But you're still Mira to us. Mira blinked slowly. Something warm settled in her expression. Thank you. His footsteps echoed above. Security was coming. Mira nodded to the trio. You should go up first. Tell them the core is secured. I will follow. But Jace shook his head. We're not leaving you. She looked at them with quiet surprise. Lyra smiled faintly. We started this together. We finish it together. Oswin nodded so hard his glasses almost slipped. Mira breathed out a soft laugh. All right. Together then. They walked out of the chamber side by side. The lights grew brighter as they approached the upper levels. More footsteps, more voices waiting. As they stepped into the open hallway, the security teams stopped in shock. Some whispered her codename. Others stood in silent awe, but Mira did not look at them. She looked at the trio, the people who had seen her not as a weapon, not as a legend, but as someone who simply wanted peace. And for the first time in a long while, Myra felt something new. She felt found. The station was safe. The war's shadow had been pushed back once. More humanity would sleep tonight because she had chosen to stand. Again, and standing with her were 3 ordinary people, who had become extraordinary when she needed them. Most Mira walked forward, the girl next door. A soldier who shifted wars and now, someone who was finally not fighting alone.